Hi, it's Maria, and this is the overview for all the Forgiveness to Love videos. And so I titled it, Come Bask with Me in the Evolution That Will Set You Free. And this is part one. And so I wanted to welcome you to the adventure of your soul. And I wanted to um, tape this one after I had done some of the other videos so that I could see which direction I was going to go on for the videos and what was going to come out um, of of um, of my thoughts in terms of what I was going to put out to the public. And so anyway, get ready for a wild ride because it is something that is so near and dear to so many of our hearts because the truth is so vitally important. Without the truth, we have nothing, truly. And so in this Forgiveness to Love series, we are embarking on kind of an existential journey from forgiveness to love. And for those of you who know me and my work, you know the truth is the fire that burns within my soul, right? And the truth is the fuel that validates our very existence. And so, after all, remember John, or was it Mary, in 8:32, who said, "Then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And that's just so beautiful. It just encapsulates everything. And so the truth propels us and compels us to focus on the core essence of our purpose here, right? And for me, my purpose here is on this incredible soul adventure, right? Is to tell the truth. And so it's my gift to me and to you. And it's the reason for my life experience, my journey, and my incarnation. And you, my beautiful friends, your truth is your gift. And it's the reason for your life experience, your journey, and your very incarnation. And so, some of us have traveled a rather circuitous route, right? Replete with steel and cement blockages and boulders and storming detours, of course, because that's what happens on planet Earth. Yet, the path for all of us here is all about self-love. And that path is through forgiveness. And in this series, Forgiveness to Love, I reveal a rather gripping story, if not chilling, and it's an extravaganza, kind of extraordinaire, of unearthing darkness and negativity that will blow your socks off, right? Because it involves virtually every crime you can imagine, right? And festering in virtually every industry you can imagine, involving more money than you can imagine, and involving more people and even more flying monkeys than you can imagine. And the betrayal of all in my life who, by virtue of their very presence in my life, opened the door to accessing even more impassioned self-love. So sometimes things have to get really, really crazy before they can get better. And so we're noticing that out in the world right now. And we're noticing it also in our own homes and in our own lives. Because again, what happens macroscopically in the world happens microscopically within our own families and within our own towns and within our own homes. Yes. And so here I talk about gang stalking, which is going on, in other places, not just in my home or around me, but it's happening elsewhere as well. And so I'm talking about gang stalking. I talk about extortion. We know that that's going on in a lot of places. along with Wall Street and other places. But we talk about blackmail, right? We talk about theft. We talk about stealing of assets. You know, people are thieving left, right, and center. People on the internet are hacking into people's bank accounts and their life savings. I mean, it's just crazy. People are stealing others' identity. I mean, my identity has been stolen so many times, it's not funny. And I couldn't even get credit because somebody else, is using my information. And no one can really do much about it because they said, well, people just do that and we work on it, but there's no telling because these hackers are more proficient at it than the people that work at the companies in the IT department. So I don't know. Anyway, I think at the core of this tempestuous typhoon, was unmitigated greed and a malignant obsession for power. And that's what it is, whether, again, it's within a family dynamic or whether it's out in the world. And so in my family, obviously, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I talk about a sibling and a son and an ex who has passed. But he was kind of the brainchild before it all, and then kind of got everybody else in on it, saying, I'll pay you if you do this, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to steal this from her, and we're going to then put it here, and he's going to fly here, and this is the account it's going to go in, and then we're going to take this document, and we're going to forge it, and you're going to put your signature on it, and we're going to cross out hers, and then the beneficiary is going to change. And I mean, really, we've kind of reached the bottom of the barrel if we do things like that. But and it's almost like it sounds like a feature film, right? Or at the very least, a mini series. And so you see, what I've come to realize is that every one of us has agreed to star in this epic production designed to raise our vibration. Yeah, because that's why we're here. That's why we're on this little blue-green ball. And I had my props, but again, either they've been taken. I think they have been taken and stolen. And so anyway, doesn't really matter. Anyway, I had those balls, and I just haven't been able to go shopping for them. But I loved holding the earth, and I had it in blue and in green. And so anyway, those blue-green balls, and that's planet Earth, and it's located 3 rocks from the sun, right? Remember that show? And but we're really one star among hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy, right? And the name of our galaxy is the Milky Way galaxy. And however delicious that thought might be of the chocolate variety, we're talking about the real Milky Way galaxy that's among billions of other galaxies in our universe. And so you see, on our planet, the inhabitants lived in darkness, with only occasional glimpses of light. And so some believe that human beings evolved from unconscious and primitive ancestral creatures, right? While others believed in Michelangelo's creation of man. Remember where God touches man's finger? Yes. The creation of man via the divine. And it matters not really what your belief is, because we are right here, right now. And this story unfolds for the emergence of miracle after miracle after miracle. And we will see what all those miracles are and how you can behold them and how they are yours for the asking. And so while in the darkness, man committed an abysmal array of crimes. Something's funny with my phone. Let's see. Okay. Anyway, the crimes against himself and his fellow man and all the living plants and animals that shared his earthly home, right? And so he was also destroying by way of his utter disrespect of self. And so he was kind of self-destructing because he didn't respect himself. And so, and the very magnitude of that betrayal of self kept growing and growing and growing. And so there is no greater betrayal than the betrayal of yourself, right? And so at times, and ever so slowly, the light would peer through the teeny tiny openings for light to shine. And so some could partake in the flavor, of an itsy bitsy morsel of consciousness, right? And as man begins to love himself, he begins to love others. And that's what it's all about. And so, have you noticed that? Yeah? And so this love is different. It's different from the love that says, I love you because it benefits me and I want something from you, right? But rather it says, I love you because I see the divinity that is you. And so virtually every human being who's walked this earth has experienced some degree of struggle within, right? Because man has been given free will to choose. And man doesn't always make wise decisions. Wisdom comes later. Wisdom comes after experiencing enough pain, I think, so that we see where the choices that we made that just weren't really the wisest ones and what we could have done. But, we learned by trial and error, right? A baby, a toddler, gets up and tries to walk and then falls down. And then he gets up and tries to walk and falls down. And pretty soon he gets it. And it's kind of like the same with man. We make enough mistakes and then we learn. And so we don't necessarily repeat those mistakes unless we do. And then we really, then we really need to go to the back of the class. But oddly enough, most choose to experience challenges. And it's in this divine bestowing of free will where human beings are given the opportunity to make choices that bless them in only ways that divinity may bless us, right? And so when we choose a higher path, which is the calling of our soul, then we can experience miracles. At the same time, when we choose the ugly, to do the ugly, and to ignore the red flags, then we're ignoring the path of higher consciousness. And so we open up ourselves to sorrow and to sadness and to illness and to despair. And so if we just look around and we realize that we really are so very powerful. It's just amazing, right? And I know that trite phrase is we create our reality. But when you think about it, we really do create our reality. And that really is the key because we have the ability to shift our consciousness and to remove the blankets that have kind of weighed heavily over us or on us, actually. And so they keep us from personifying the glorious energy of our Creator. And that's what we're here to do. We are, the divine works through us, right? And so we shouldn't block that, right? Because we are here to allow the divine to work through us and to help the planet, to serve humanity, to serve ourselves and all the others that we are in contact with, right? All the plants, all the animals, all the human beings. And so as we get closer in the approach to the energy of love, life takes on new meaning. And the more we love, the more we feel. And the more we feel, the more we own it. And the more we understand it and the more we embody it. And it just doesn't get much better than that, right? And so like the reptiles, that shed their skin and our furry little friends who get their puppy cuts, they transform because they shed the old. They don't need that anymore. And we don't need to be around people who aren't going to tell us the truth. We don't need to struggle anymore. We don't need to experience the pain in order to learn. We can kind of bypass that step. And so in the videos, Forgiveness to Love, I dissect certain aspects of life here on planet Earth, such that, the planet of chaos and darkness can no longer survive the mindset of victim and perpetrator, right? Because we can walk the uncommon path, the sacred path to our ascension. And that's the nitty gritty of it all, where the truth is shared. Yeah? So I'm letting you know that you will see unadulterated and raw truth in my messages in these videos. And so it's the truth of our purpose here and of our being on this beloved planet. And we're all being given an exquisite opportunity to participate in the greatest awakening of humanity of all time, right? Do you understand that? Did I say that right? It's the greatest human awakening of all time. Truly, we are in the thick of it right now. What a glorious time to be alive. And so when we're aware of why human beings even exist, then we can understand all that we're going through. And during our years when we go from birthday to birthday to birthday, and we don't think that much has changed, actually, so much has changed internally. It may not be reflected outside. Maybe we live in the same home with the same people, and yet we have experienced a shift. I don't think that there's a person on the planet that's alive that hasn't in some way been affected by all the surges in energy that are going on right now across the universe. And so we have an amazing opportunity to wake up and figure out who we truly are, and we all behold that spark of creation within us. And so, I did think that when we say, like, this kind of came to me, and it was kind of like the annihilation of democracy is the massacre of humanity. And for me, that just rang so true, because when we infringe on the rights of others, we all lose, right? And then it's game over. And we go back to the slave trade, basically, and yet we're then all enslaved. And yet it's only through a delicate, life-affirming satin ribbon that we can witness our evolution and model a journey of 1,000 steps. And we can take those baby steps. We aren't necessarily going to move forward by leaps and bounds, but every day and in every way, we get better and better. And so, and the steps are, we can feel like we've been metaphorically trapped, or tripped or humbled, and we can feel like we can't take those steps, and we can feel like we've fallen flat on our face, and we have, contusions and broken bones. You know the feeling when you just don't feel like you can move forward because you feel stuck. You feel paralyzed in some way. You feel sabotaged, sometimes in every way possible. And my life was nothing short of that. It was kind of like this nightmarish saga of where every day seemed to be like a living hell, And certainly when I realized that I was being stalked and followed and harassed and intimidated and isolated and shunned, and kind of thrown away with the trash and compacted into nothingness. I mean, the discrimination was thought to be something only that those of a different skin color might have endured. Yet remember, white is the presence of every color. And so my issue was far greater, and I seemed to be handpicked. and believe me, only God knows why, to suffer through it all. And so I kept asking, why me? And for years, I couldn't possibly comprehend the answer. And so lo and behold, it was my own family that, and I never realized, but with greed was like oozing from their every pore. And it's just, I mean, get a visual of that one. It was just so gross. And where they stopped at nothing to create daily pain for me. And it was almost like this had to be a joke. I felt like I was an experiment. I felt like I was, a lab rat, because, and I said that in one of my other videos, because there was just, they would command virtually every private and public entity known to man to hunt me down for my ultimate extermination. I couldn't understand that. I thought, who are these people? This is my son and my sister. How dare they have so much clout? And having stolen all my things, and now they're getting, like, every phone call I make, they get them to basically banish me in some way. And so it was just the craziest thing I had ever heard. And there was just so much insanity that it was, you know, it was just crazy. I was just totally floored. I didn't even know how to make sense of it, actually. So every moment seemed like a challenge that was so formidable that I questioned my ability to even get to the next challenge, right? Because it was just, the poisoning of my every sip and bite. I mean, how do you eat? How do you reconcile that with, this is your family? And the thieving of every dime. And, I wasn't even in Camp Lejeune, and I've mentioned Camp Lejeune because I find it very interesting, where they talk now of over 1 million people being poisoned drinking the water. And so, and yes, they have 16 billion supposedly set aside in compensation, but only God knows who will survive to even get a penny of that other than the attorneys. And so, and what about the paraquat? That's the herbicide that's linked to tremors and Parkinson's. And then you've got the Johnson and Johnson talc fiasco with the ovarian cancer. And then you've got the Topamax, and that's the Tylenol, I think, where 1 in 44 children are diagnosed with an intellectual disability. And then you even have a hernia mesh, where there are complications, and they say to call a lawyer, where the ad says, where the truth will be revealed. Well, oh my God. I have my own issues with attorneys and question whose interests they put first and center, given my own assault and battery lawsuit against Greyhound, when in 2019, that I've spoken of in my videos, the driver pushed the button to slam the huge steel door on my face and head. And if that wasn't enough, I realized that my own family was kind of behind that. And that was to have me brain injured, if not worse, right? And so here we are with, it's like lawsuit time, right? And I had to drop that lawsuit because I didn't think that I was being adequately represented. But it's lawsuit time, and attorneys are in hog heaven, right? Because they're holding companies accountable for their negligent behavior in endangering the public. And so yes, yes, ostensibly, that's a wonderful thing. And that's why we have attorneys, to help us when things have been, to solve injustice, right? And to bring justice back into our lives. And so there's always a reason, right? I mean, people don't do things for nothing, and this kind of brings about, how people talk about ambulance chasers and things like that. I hope that this doesn't spread into something where everybody's suing everybody, and because that's a real toxic mess too. Actually, I think the lawsuits, as far as I'm concerned, litigation is needs a whole it needs to be totally transformed into more of a mediation type, and it shouldn't be about suing and it shouldn't be so adversarial. because the both sides, you have one person on one side of the courtroom and the other person on the other side, and they're just at each other's throats, and they're lying and they're cheating and they're doing all kinds of things, and they're trying to one up, and it's really ugly. And so there just doesn't seem to be a need for that, because we're headed in the wrong direction if we take that route. Whereas we're trying to mediate and come up with a win-win for everyone, not a big win for one person and then the other person gets nothing, right? And so it's about seeing the oneness of everything. It's about seeing what's fair and what's just and what's equitable. And so you've got, these large corporations now that are being sued by personal injury attorneys, and that's we also have, the toxic families, right, that have been exposing us to toxic chemicals by deliberately and strategically poisoning our food while we welcome them. We say, "Oh, come for dinner. Oh, come, let me host you. Let me cook for you. Let me help you." And so we welcome them as guests in our home. Meanwhile, not only are we sleeping with the enemy, but we're also eating with them too. And so I wonder, it led me to think of, I had been sprayed by a landscaping company who sprayed a toxic pesticide on me, and that rendered me, for 5 years, I was like the woman in the bubble. They didn't think I was going to make it. At the Mayo Clinic, they didn't know what to do with me. I went there twice, and I had seen top uh, neurologists and immunologists in various states across the country. And I was rendered as the woman in the bubble, because I became so allergic to everything, because my liver just couldn't sustain any more poison. And so yeah. And then now we also have this situation where we have to really scrutinize our medical care, because sometimes we understand that, in fact, our medical care, which I've mentioned in, I think it was in parts, in numbers 27 and 28, and subsequent videos, where we talk about the ethics of the medical care that we are receiving, and the lab reports and the imaging reports and things like that. Anyway, there is so much sabotage going on in the world out there. And so when there is darkness within our family, they can charm and entrap our medical providers and our legal counsels and our financial advisors, and in virtually every sector that we are involved in, right? There's medicine, there's law, there's business, there's tax, there's banking, there's philanthropy, there's education, there's societal, there's governmental. And so you have all of these different sectors that we are affiliated with in some way, shape, or form. And yet we also, there's kind of like this dark cloud that can get to all these different sectors, and to our detriment. And so, when I realized that, actually, I had been told that there was a contract out on my life. And I had also, that there was slander and libel of my character. And so, and that was when I had the bogus lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit. And, now it's about a $50 million judgment. And when I'm 80, it'll be $500 million. And so that was exactly the amount of my inheritance. And so, it's so laughable, because it's so crazy, right? And it was, it just reminded me of the whole Johnny Depp PR extravaganza. I mean, he's in a whole different league than I am, but the numbers were very similar. And then we talk about the shunning and the isolation and the humiliation, where where the PR firms try to make us out as these. It's a laughable situation. They try to make us out as kind of the laughing stock, and because they get paid, right, to write these silly articles and to um, kind of have reporters harassing us and things like that. I mean, good reporters don't do that. Good photographers don't do that. But to have people that are kind of, to put cameras in our home, in our bathrooms, in our bedrooms, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And so, and then the stealing of our identity, right? And so I didn't even have any credit because there were bozos pretending to be me, and no one seemed to care. And so, when we're bombarded by all these things coming at us from all different directions, all we want to do is just run for cover. I know sometimes I just want to just climb in the bed and just put the covers over my head. I would just like to have my own bed someday, rather than being a house guest in some wonderful people's homes. And so I must say that I've been very, very blessed to find people who have welcomed me into their homes, given the fact that my home was taken and everything else, so I couldn't even get home. But it's all part of the journey, because it's not about the destination. It's we're learning on the journey. As we progress, we grow, and we become better, and we become stronger. So if in fact, in 2012, 2013, when I was getting letters saying that they were writing me out of the will, after my parents had died, and that the will had been rewritten or something like that, and so I had lost all the things that my parents were left me in their will and trust. And had I been able to go back to my condo on the beach and just live that life, I probably would have been quite happy for a while. But I would have missed out on getting to know all these people and overcoming all these challenges that were thrown in my face, and just all the things that have happened, and all the growth that I've experienced. And yeah, sure, I didn't want all of my things stolen, and even my things from my website, mariahaiti.com, and all my props and my wigs and my, costumes and stuff, because I really had so much fun doing those. I was like this ditzy. I wanted it to be like a Saturday Night Live thing, where it was like a ditzy woman who was just talking, and I wanted to kind of uh, make it so it was fun, so that even our youth that maybe was just tasting spirituality would think that, oh wow, and now I get that. That's really interesting. And so, yeah, some people thought, I was either drunk or drugged or something like that, but that wasn't the case. It was just I was trying to be fun. And then all that stuff was in an extra space storage locker that I heard that sibling broke into, or sibling changed the locks or something like that and took all my stuff. But yeah, to realize that you were so betrayed by your own family, that was a painful lesson. But now, you know what? I'm not surprised by anything anymore. This is terrible, but yes. And so we become stronger, and we will not be taken advantage of anymore. And try as they may, but and the legal situation, it was really, I was embroiled in one legal circus after another. It was just constant lawsuits, and that was just to kind of keep me distracted and to just keep taking things from me, while I was just kind of befuddled, or for lack of a better word. And so yeah, and I was blocked from earning a living, but maybe I wasn't supposed to earn a living, because I was supposed to kind of, I guess, help people where I was living, in exchange for their graciousness of allowing me to stay in their home. And so their grace. And so, yeah, I learned so much. I learned so much about how other people live. I only knew the way I lived and the way my parents had taught me. And yet, the world is filled with different kinds of people. And fortunately, I was very blessed to find some really good people who understood my situation and really supported me until they didn't, you know. And then I realized that that was kind of God guiding me that it was time to move on. And so everything works out, really for us. And so even the fact that my children, have been alienated from me for 17 years, that's almost 2 decades. And yet I realized that I was the kind of mom who was always driving them places and always talking to them and always helping them with their homework and making sure they had everything. And I'd stand at the um, stove when they'd wake up, and I'd say, okay, who wants fried eggs, who wants pancakes, who wants this, who wants this. And so whatever they wanted, they were so coddled. I loved them so much that I decided that my job was to care for my children and to raise four super babies. And so that wasn't maybe what I was supposed to do. I mean, I was for a time until my oldest son went to college, and then they were every 2 years. So it was perhaps 18, 16, 14, and 12. And and then they had their own path, and they were always welcome with me. And yet I left Chicago, and so sometimes they came and sometimes they didn't, but they always had tickets, and I would always provide for them. So anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but you know, uh, isn't life interesting? I mean, really. And so when people start trying to take things from us, we have to realize that they can take all of our things for sure, and we can lose those things in a natural disaster, in a fire, or in a flood, or in a hurricane, or whatever. But they can't take our soul, and they can never take what's inside. They can never take our goodness. They can never take our kindness. They can never take the expansive heart that we have. And so not now, not then, not ever. And so for a while, when I was broke and brain injured and living in a car that was sabotaged to explode, I thought, you know what, I've really reached rock bottom. And I think I had. And yet at the same time, I had a car. Some people don't have a car. And so the fact that at one point I had several cars, but I was glad to have a car. And yes, it was sabotaged. But at the same time, somehow, um, the higher power, God, the universe, the energy of all creation, um, Jesus, all the ascended masters, my guardian angels, my angels, the archangels, all the heavenly beings that I feel um, protect human beings, and certainly protect me. When I realize that they hadn't left me. And I think my greatest wish for you is to know how divinely protected you really are, by virtue of the fact that you have incarnated on this planet at this point in time. And so you are never alone. And so and even when I was at my lowest like that, um, there wasn't a man around that wanted to stick around, right? I mean, would you want to be with a woman who was in that bad a shape? I don't think so. And then you wouldn't certainly want in-laws, or, well, not in-laws, because my parents were deceased and they were truly little angels. But you wouldn't want a sister-in-law and a stepson who strategizes, your wife's demise or whatever. So, Yeah, they ran as far and as fast as they could, and I didn't blame them one single bit. In fact, two of the men during that time I gave car keys to, and I said, "Here, go. I understand. I wouldn't stay here if I were you either. Just go because you don't deserve this." And of course, I didn't deserve it, but I was kind of walking my path, and this was my biological family that I had to deal with. But anyway, Earth is our classroom, and so let's see. Um, I don't think we should let another moment pass without embracing our own story. You have your story, I have my story, and yet, there are so many similarities between the two. Of course, mine might seem a little more dramatic, and yet, I feel like I was given the tools to deal with it. And your story, I mean, I'm sure that you have dealt with amazing challenges that you never thought you would deal with, and yet you did, and you overcame them, and you survived them. And so you jumped over every obstacle that was thrown in your way, and so um, mm, anyway, so if you're listening to this, you've made it and you're here. And so I think I'm going to end this now and we can get to part two, where I really am going to talk more about how we all can really do great and overcome all the challenges that are thrown in our path, and how grateful we are for being on this planet right now. And so I'm grateful for you, and I thank you for being here. And I do truly love you. And I will see you part two of the overview. And so may you be blessed. And I love you. Bye.